Hi, folks. Today we're going to be talking about how to write an introduction, why you should write an introduction, all the good things about introductions. And I'm going to be referencing very briefly the reading that I linked to, because, again, I think that, you don't need me to tell you what you read. But I did want to kind of add some stuff to this. By the way, if you haven't already, I would check out this thing on conclusions. I know that's kind of later into one of the to-dos, but that's something to kind of just think about. Um, so anyway, let's get into it. So one of the things when we think about why bother writing a good introduction, I think they make a really great point about first impressions. But one other thing I just want to kind of piggyback on is this idea of creating a roadmap and introducing your topic. Um, Not everyone's going to be as familiar with your topic as you. Not everyone reading your paper is always going to understand the nuances of your topic or what you're even talking about. I think a lot of folks, when they're writing papers, have this notion that I'm just writing for my professor, and that's not true. And also, too, the more you kind of, the higher you go in terms of your education, quite frequently, multiple people could be reading your paper within the same, kind of discipline, but just not in the same class. So I'll give you an example. When working on my thesis, you have different advisors that you're working with, and each advisor seemingly picks books that no one else in the whole little pod has read. So if you're referencing one of the books they told you to read and the other person's not familiar with that person, that you're going to have to kind of talk about that reading in a way that they understand it. And forgive me, I'm going to be using this in example in the research one as well. But that's just something to kind of think about. That that not everyone is just going to be on the totally the same page as my professor when they're reading my papers. So you have to think that the introduction's job is to introduce this topic so that your reader is on the same page as you. So that's why when I think about introductions, I like to kind of break it down in a couple different parts. So they mentioned hooks a lot in this document. And so that's one of the first things when I think of an introduction is having this hook to grab the reader's attention. Sometimes that's really short, sometimes that's a little longer. Above all, though, whatever it looks like in terms of its length, it's doing the job of grabbing their attention. Now, the next part of a these introduction is what I like to call the background or context section of the introduction. And so again, this is mentioned in this reading a little bit, kind of in a different verbiage, but very similar into what I'm going to describe it as. But this is the part of your introduction that just gives us sort of background or context to the topic. So, for example, in Unit 2, we're dealing with gender and how there are certain obstacles that are placed on people because of their gender. So, one of the things we've been talking a lot about are gender roles, right? And how gender roles can make it harder for some folks to be successful. And so, what you might want to do in this introduction is to give us some background information or context to what gender roles are and how they are become a hurdle. um, One of the things I think you'll start to see is, when I'm using multiple sources, I can't just summarize each source in my introduction. That's not going to really work. So you have to find a way maybe to sort of give context or background to the topic that helps us understand the umbrella that all of these readings kind of fit under. The next part is a thesis, and the reason why we're looking at this in this sequential order is that, if we don't put these in this order, we're going to have some issues in terms of our readers, because the hook is designed to grab their attention. If we put that last, kind of defeats the purpose of having a hook. The thesis is designed to tell the reader our argument or position on the specific topic. And if we don't introduce the topic or get them interested in the topic first, then it feels kind of odd, to have it at the beginning, right? So that's why I think kind of putting these in this order works. Um, so yeah, basically, the reading talks about all these different factors, but I just like to kind of distill it into as clear as a thing as possible. And when you're looking at your introductions, kind of having these different parts to it, I think that's a good way to kind of think about it and might be helpful when you're writing your paper. All right, so that's about introductions. Obviously, we're going to talk about conclusions at a different point in the semester. But if you have any questions on what goes in an introduction, what's a good hook versus a bad hook, uh, how much is too much information in terms of background information, let me know and we could talk about it in further detail via email or whatever means of communication works for you. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.